Section 8 of Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Robert Scott. Selected Letters, number 127, by Ludwig van Beethoven, as compiled with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Knoll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 127, Deposition, 1814. I voluntarily presented Maelzel gratis with a battle symphony for his panharmonic. After having kept it for some time, he brought me back the score, which he had already begun to engrave, saying that he wished it to be harmonized for a full orchestra. The idea of a battle had already occurred to me, which, however, could not be performed on his panharmonic. We agreed to select this and some more of my works to be given at the concert for the benefit of disabled soldiers. At that very time, I became involved in the most frightful pecuniary difficulties, forsaken by everyone in Vienna, and in daily expectation of remittances. Maelzel offered me 50 gold ducats, which I accepted, saying that I would either repay them or allow him to take the work to London, provided that I did not go there myself with him, referring him to an English publisher for payment. I got back from him the score written for the panharmonic. The concerts then took place, and during that time Herr Maelzel's designs and character were first fully revealed. Without my consent, he stated on the bills of concert that the work was his property. Indignant at this, I insisted on destroying these bills. He then stated that I had given it to him as a friendly act, because he was going to London. To this I did not object, believing that I had reserved the right to state the conditions on which the work should be his own. I remember that when the bills were being printed, I violently opposed them. But the time was short, and I was still writing the work, in all the fire of inspiration, and absorbed in my composition. I scarcely thought at all on the subject. Immediately after the first concert in the University Hall, I was told on all sides, and by people whom I could rely, that Maelzel had everywhere given out. He had paid me 400 gold ducats for the symphony. I sent what follows to a newspaper, but the editor would not insert it, as Maelzel stands well with them all. As soon as the first concert was over, I repaid Maelzel his 50 ducats, declaring that having discovered his real character, nothing should ever induce me to travel with him. Justly indignant that without consulting me, he had stated in the bills that all the arrangements for the concert were most defective. His own despicable want of patriotism, too, is proved by the following expressions. Quote, I care nothing at all about London. If it is only to say, in London, that people have paid 10 gulden for admission here, that is all I care about. The wounded are nothing to me. End quote. Moreover, I told him that he might take the work to London on certain conditions, which I would inform him of. He then asserted that it was a friendly gift, and made use of this phrase in the newspapers after the second concert, without giving me the most remote hint on the subject. As Maelzel is a rude, churlish man, entirely devoid of education or cultivation, it is easy to conceive the tenor of his conduct to me during this time. which still further irritated me. Who could bear to be forced to bestow a friendly gift on such a man? I was offered an opportunity to send the work to the Prince Regent, afterwards George IV. It was therefore quite impossible for me to give away the work unconditionally. He then called on a mutual friend to make proposals. He was told on what day to return for an answer, but he never appeared, set off on his travels, and performed the work in Munich. How did he obtain it? He could not possibly steal it, but Herr Maelzel had several of the parts for some days in his house, and he caused the entire work to be harmonized by some obscure musical journeyman, and is now hawking it about the world. Herr Maelzel promised me ear trumpets. I harmonized the Battle Symphony for his panharmonic from a wish to keep him to his word. The ear trumpets came at last, but were not of the service to me that I expected. For this slight trouble, Herr Maelzel, after my having arranged the Battle Symphony for a full orchestra and composed a battle piece in addition, declared that I ought to have made over these works to him as his own exclusive property. Even allowing that I am in some degree obliged to him for the ear trumpets, this is entirely balanced by his having made at least 500 gulden in Munich by my mutilated or stolen battle piece. He has therefore paid himself in full. He had actually the audacity to say here that he was in possession of the battle piece. In fact, he showed it, written out to various persons. I did not believe this, and in fact with good reason, as the whole is not by me, but compelled by someone else. Indeed, the credit he assumes for the work should alone be sufficient compensation. The secretary at the War Office made no allusions whatever to me, and yet every work performed at both concerts was of my composition. Herr Maelzel thinks fit to say that he has delayed his visit to London on account of the battle piece, which is a mere subterfuge. He stayed to finish his patchwork, as the first attempt did not succeed. Beethoven. End of letter 127. End of section 8. Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recorded by Robert Scott, June the 22nd, 2007.